Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Fan Behavior. I'm Hannah, and Zoe is on PTO this weekend. So we brought in one of our friends, Dev. Hello, thank you so much for being on the show. Um, so I feel like a lot of our listeners already know who you are, follow you, but I would love for you to kind of give a little bit of background about yourself and how you got into this crazy sport that we're all invested in, just so people have a little bit more information about you.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Devyani, but if you've seen me on social media, you would know me as Formula underscore Dev. I've been an F1 fan for about 6 years now. Original Drive to Survive crew, watched it like March, April of 2019, and was immediately like, I'm obsessed with this. And, doing anything casually is not for me. It's all about soul crushing devotion over here. So, been pretty obsessed ever since. But my thing that I love to talk about the most is F1 history, the lore. My favorite time period is like 2007 to 2016, but obviously now as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love your wall too. It's
Thank you.
amazing. But yeah, we were talking right before we started recording. I'm like, you're the historian. I can't even remember when we were in Miami, there was something. Oh, I think I was talking about how like sassy Alex Albon has been getting. And I was like, I feel like it's new. And you were like, nope, he's been like this before. Or something like that. And I was like, I
It's
just
it
love that
was
you have my
like
facts.
it's because he was basically too nice early on in his Williams days and wasn't being as direct on what
Yeah.
he felt like. And James basically was like, you need to tell us what you're actually thinking. And
Oh,
if it
yes, that's
sounds
what
a
it
bit,
was.
it's fine. So
Yeah. Love that. Well, I'm glad he took that advice because it's been really fun
it's
hearing
working for
him.
him.
Yeah, it is working for him. Um, all right. So before we get into the race a little bit, I just wanted to kind of highlight a couple things and get your take on it. First of all, Nicole Piastri and Yuki
Oh
met,
God.
and that gave me so much joy when I saw the video. I feel like I think it's the first time they've met in person, or at least they made it seem that way. There was like a whole, obviously, like video and to do about it. But yeah, I just feel like it's a moment in history, really.
I think it's hilarious because she's been talking about him on podcasts on social media for like at least 3 years now, if not
Yeah.
longer. And to see this like finally happen, like officially in the
Yeah,
Red Bull hospitality, my first thought is like, what is going through Oscar Piastri's head right now? Where he's
I
like,
know.
yeah, my mom's over in the Red Bull hospitality. Like, did she go back? Like, I have so many questions. She was wearing a Yuki hat. Like, what is
Yep.
going on?
Yeah, I know. Like, I just love that he's like, yeah, my mom's doing press. It's like she's here, she's working. Um, but I just loved their dynamic. And it's just gotta be so funny. Like, Yuki's obviously very personable, but I also just think it's so funny that like your peers' mom's like obsessed with you. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be a bit like, all right. I also feel like it's a gag sometimes, and
Yeah,
they're just running with the bit now,
sure.
and now it's like self actualized. So I don't know how much further they can take it. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
think
We'll
this is
see.
definitely probably like the moment, but I
Yeah,
do appreciate that it was caught on camera so we could all
yeah.
appreciate it. Um, And then also, it's the first race with new leadership at Red Bull, which I kind of like the like last couple weeks. I kind of like that was a big deal, obviously, and then it settled. And then when the weekend started, I was like, oh yeah, Christian Horner isn't there anymore. Um, and it
Oh.
seemed like, it was a fairly decent weekend for them, which, all things considered. But just curious about your take, and, you don't have to go into the weeds with it if you don't want to, but just your take on where Red Bull's headed and if you think it's good or how long it will take for them to get back on top, if ever.
So I thought it was hilarious that all four of the like active Red Bull affiliated drivers, like the V Carb ones too, made it into Q3 yesterday. Like the first weekend, Horner is
Yeah,
gone. Like Yuki, after a pretty bad spell of some qualifyings, made it. They're all doing well. I found it actually hilarious.
I know.
And I thought that like even the change in vibe was very different. Like Laurent Mekies talking about how, they're giving Yuki the opportunity now by taking some of the like upgrades that Max has from the stockpile they made from him and giving them to Yuki so that he can like upgrade his performance. And even today, he was like, yeah, that was our fault that Yuki lost 4 positions because we said box too late. Like the crew was ready, we were going to double stack, but they just made the call right when he was passing the pit lane or whatever.
Yeah.
So I love the accountability here.
Yes, it is a nice change of pace for sure. And I do also think like not that to be fair, you know this better than me. My historical knowledge is not great. Zoe's usually my fact checker, but I feel like it's very rare to be like, yes, we've given them this a very similar setup to Max, or like we finally decided to do that. And I feel like that's hopefully this whole second seat conversation at Red Bull, like it'll just start to be a little bit more even. I don't know. I'm just ready. It makes me really, I'm happy for Isaac and like Liam. Obviously, this weekend's great, but it makes me so sad. And obviously, Yuki did much better this weekend. But I'm just like, I feel so bad that he basically, VCarb's doing really well in comparison. And like he could have, been scoring more points and all of that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, hopefully it will be some positive change and accountability is
Fingers
yeah.
crossed.
And then another one, and this is just kind of a random, I'm just curious your take on it, but they have started or they were testing like a new driver ID system, which when I first read this headline, I thought it was going to be for them to enter the paddock, since I find it really silly that the drivers need to have an identification badge besides just their
Hilarious.
face. But it's actually for anyone who's watching or in person or on TV, on the like T-bar where they have their onboard camera, they've added like their three-letter code so that as the cars are
Oh.
driving by, you can like see which one it is because sometimes the numbers, depending on the um, livery, like you can't really tell. And because I feel like there are some helmets obviously that are very recognizable. Like Lando, I always, for the most part,
Yeah.
unless he has a
Yeah, yeah,
specialty
yeah.
helmet, it's always pretty easy to figure out who he is. But I'm really bad at like understanding who is where. And I think it's helpful, but I still didn't feel like I don't know if in person with how fast they're actually going by that you would actually be able to tell. Um,
Hmm. Doubt it.
yeah, I'll be curious to see how that goes. I do kind of wish like one thing I was thinking, it seemed like on most of the cars it was white. And I feel
Hmm.
like if they, one car had white and maybe the other car had the yellow or
Yeah.
that somehow it was different in that way. Because I think I remember it was a few years ago we were at Coda and it occurred to me that um, Lewis's number was a different color than George's number on the
Mhm.
car. And then it was just like, okay, if it's the blue blob, it's George. Like, and that was still really like the only way I could tell when we were actually at the race. So I'll be curious to see. Like I appreciate that they're
Yeah.
thinking about that because I feel
I
like,
I like that they're trying, but I'm gonna be honest. When I'm physically at a race, I have no idea who's who. I'm gonna be so honest. Like
oh,
sometimes I'm trying to
same.
take a picture of Charles. It ended up being Carlos last. Like this, there's no way. I don't know what they could do. They'd have to like put a giant like neon sign above them for me to
Yeah.
realize.
I mean, truly, it really is. You can't tell. It's just sometimes it's just so hard unless the livery itself has a very distinct
Yeah,
like numbered like a different color number. But even sometimes the numbers are like woven into the design and you really
yeah.
just can't tell at all.
Especially if you're like up in the high grandstands or something, there's just no shot for me. I think on TV it could be helpful if you're paying close attention
Yeah.
for sure. But I'm gonna be honest, I just have the driver tracker up, so I know too.
Yeah.
I, I have no idea. Like me with no glasses watching this race, there's no
Yeah.
way I'm ever gonna know who's who.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if like that sticks or if they like
Mhm.
evolve in some way with
Yeah,
that. But I appreciated that they're at least thinking
they're
about that.
trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, well, we'll start getting into some of the race weekend. As everyone, well, I would assume most people who listen to our show know, I don't really watch practice, so we're just gonna breeze through that. But I was kind of looking ahead. It didn't really seem like there was much like a lot of interesting things that came out of practice other than the McLarens looked good, which was a
Yeah.
shock to no one. Um, and then I will say we were talking about this before we started too. Like Spa is my favorite track. I love this race, and I kind of felt like a snooze fest to me. I mean, like there were some good bits, but overall, I just like wasn't that jazzed. And I also forgot it was a sprint weekend. I was like, wow, they're really just we're coming back with a bang.
It's pretty bad, yeah.
Yeah. What's your take on sprint races? I always am curious what people think.
So I don't have a okay, I think sprint races are cool if you're going to the track in person
Yeah.
because it means you get more on track action. And it also means like if race tickets are really expensive, you can just buy a ticket for Friday and still get some action or
Yep.
just Saturday and you can see a race and a quality session, which is what I like about it.
Hmm.
But I don't they've tried so many different things with the scheduling, whether they do, if it's just sprint Saturday or how they do it. But I still feel like in the sprint race, nobody's taking risks because
Yeah,
it's not worthy enough, except for maybe midfielders and backmarkers who are fighting for points. But at the front, nobody's really taking risks because they have quality right after, which is way more important for them. So they're not going to do an overtake that they might do the next day for the lead. So
totally.
sometimes I feel like it's pointless. And sometimes the tracks they choose to do it at, I'm like, I
Why?
don't, this does nothing for me. But I did see they've released next year's sprint calendar, and I'm not mad at it. I just taking Brazil off the sprint race calendar is very silly to me because
Agreed.
you're never gonna go wrong with racing in Brazil. Like
Yeah.
that, I feel like that's where a lot of the sprint advocates came from, like seeing Brazil 2021, and they're
Yeah.
like, that's the greatest thing ever. And it's like, no, it's Interlagos, it's not the sprint race. So
Yeah.
I get it for people who are going to the races, but honestly, they just lose practice time. And then if they're bringing upgrades, it's a waste. So I'm 50-50. Like, I'm not against it vehemently or anything like that, but I could do without it also.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've always said that too. Like for someone who's able to like go to that weekend in person, I think it's just like better bang for your buck, depending
Mm-hmm.
on, if you can only go one day or whatever. But yeah, I was talking with some of my friends over the weekend about like, I feel like we're either just gonna have to like keep reiterate like or like changing the format of it or probably at some point get rid of it altogether because I know the drivers for the most part don't really like it and it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's just so much for them too on a
Yeah.
weekend. But I always wonder like if the result of the sprint race ended up being quali like the qualifying order, if that would change anything or if it wouldn't
Like
change,
how they used to do it, where they would
Yeah.
qualify for the sprint race and the sprint race position would end up where you started off the race.
Yeah. Is
That's
that
how it
that's what I couldn't
was.
remember. Is that how it was? Because I couldn't remember
Yeah.
if it was um sprint like it was just one qualifying session and that was your starting order for sprint and the race. But was it the race
Yeah, yeah.
results?
Yeah, so it was their quali determined where you started in the sprint, and where you finished the sprint determined where you started the race. I think I'm
Okay.
remembering that right.
Okay. So I
And
guess
then they
that
changed
didn't
it.
work either. So because we had complaints at that time too. So maybe that's
Yeah,
not the answer either.
I also think you're like just never going to make everyone happy. Like there's some
Yeah,
people who are like sprints are the bane of my existence. Like bring back the VTEC. Like there's that faction of people too. So I don't
totally.
know. It's like do
Yeah.
whatever you got to do.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, Sprint Quali started off. I got really excited because Amelia de Moldenberg, I think is how we say her last
Mm-hmm.
name, was there, and I with Haas. And she's just a gem. I love her, and I'm curious to see if it was a work trip for her or if she was just attending
It
for fun. It
was.
was?
So that day she was in the Haas garage, but the other day she was in the Williams garage and she was sitting in the Williams car. And I think on Ted's notebook, he said that Williams are helping her film something. And I could
Nice.
only assume that's.
Yeah. Wow, I love that. And I feel like I'd be curious if she did a date with both of them, like together, or only
That would
one of
be
them. Because
hilarious.
honestly, they would both be really fantastic in their own way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that would be, or if it was James too, that would be
Oh
funny.
my God.
Can you imagine? James would be so
He
nervous and
actually would.
uncomfy. I think he
I
would
think
do
he could be good
well.
at it
Yeah,
because he has pretty good like retorts,
yeah.
because he has that dry humor type thing.
Hmm.
I think it would work with her.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I also just think it's as long as he understands like her shtick, I think some people go in and they're like, what are like think it's kind of real and don't understand what her personality is like. And
I think
I'm
they
just
need
like,
to
what are we
like
doing?
their PR person needs to do some recon, like watch Chicken Shop Day and tell them what the bit is so that they
Yeah,
get it.
yeah,
I do think Alex would be fantastic at it.
I do too. I mean, I love Carlos, but I personally hope it's with Alex because
He
he needs
maybe
more airtime, in my opinion.
I think Carlos might be too like chivalrous and like
Yeah.
earnest almost
Hmm.
for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. We would
Plus, I
see.
feel like Lily really lo like I feel like she's one of us. She probably really
Yeah.
appreciates Chicken Shop Date, and they probably have watched it a lot. So
Mm.
hopefully, um, so th again, I feel like there wasn't a ton of stuff that happened. I know there was Lewis went off the track, which poor Lewis. There's just so much going on at that team right now. I just can't. And then I remember I don't remember seeing any results of it, but there was I think there was a potential impeding incident between Pierre and Yuki that was going to be investigated after the session, but I don't
Nothing
think
came of
anything came
that.
of that. But it ended with Albon, Hulk, Hamilton, Franco, and Kimi were all out of
Yeah, Q1.
SQ1. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like really, I feel so bad for Franco right now too. Like
Dude,
it's just such, he just can't win right now. I just it makes me really sad. Um, so let me go into SQ2. I always write notes like too when I see people on the camera. I like just love Lando's mom. Like she's just the cutest. I think it was. I'm assuming it was her sister or someone that was with her today
hmm
to or yesterday, whatever day
hmm
it was, Friday, Saturday. I don't know, but she's just so eclectic and like just doesn't match Lando in any way, and I kind of love it. She's just like this fun, quirky art teacher vibe.
Art teacher is such a good, yeah, that's
I
a
think
great
Zoe
read.
said that, and I was like, yes, she is like an art teacher.
Very much.
Yeah, she just seems really sweet and nice. But um, again, SQ2, nothing too crazy. We had Liam, Yuki, George, which kind of surprised me. And then the two Aston Martins out in
Yeah.
SQ2.
The only thing in SQ2 was that Oscar's lap time got deleted, like his
Yes.
first one. So he was, like, I think it was during in Radion. And so it was just very stressful to see if he was going to get eliminated. But then I was like, it's a sprint. It doesn't matter. So
Yeah. Well, that and also, I
remember.
mean, it was at least, oh yeah, because oh yeah, he was down. I forgot he didn't. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, well, he'll be there. I just always assume it's kind of like when Max was in his reign. I was just like, oh, it'll
He's
be
going to be
fine. And then
there.
you look up and you're like, what the
Oh,
hell's
shit.
going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then SQ3, we had a delayed start, but I think there was just so much gravel on tracks. I think
I
that
think it was
was,
gravel. I don't even remember what it
yeah,
was.
a lot of delays this weekend. Um, the only note I have, which must have been during the delayed start, was Yuki's interview. I mean, he looked
Mm.
like he got punched in the gut. Like he just looked like a sad puppy. And I don't know. Anyway, things got better a little bit for
It
him,
did.
but I felt so bad. Um, but so yeah, sprint quali ended. We had, now I feel, oh no, never mind. Sorry. Got myself confused. I was like, I thought Max got pulled, but no, that's not what happened.
Oscar.
Yeah. So it was Oscar, Max, Lando. Um, and Charles was P4. Impressed by the Haas's. I felt like they did a good job. So Ocon came or was started P5 and Ollie started P7. We finally got
Mhm.
Carlos involved too, which was great.
Finally,
I know. I'm really rooting for Williams. I just need them
back to the top.
back to the top. Um, and then sprint race, more of a parade, I think, in my
It
opinion.
was so that is one of I try not to call races boring because there's
Yeah.
usually something I can find interesting like on the onboard. But that one, it was first of all, it was 5 a.m. for me. And I was
Mm,
like, just after that initial, the double overtake, I gotta say, with like the synchronized Max and Charles on
yeah.
Oscar and Lando, nice to see. Like it was fun. But
Yeah.
after that, I was like, I don't know what's happening here, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Nothing. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what it was crazy. I was just like, wow. And then the only thing I didn't, and you probably know better than me, but do you know what happened to Pierre? I like could not figure out because he
So
started, where was he? Oh yeah, P8. And then all of a sudden he was just like 2 laps
he
behind
had a
and
he had a problem, so essentially he had to come back in the pit lane. They were trying to fix whatever was going on, but they ended up sending him out. And to me it basically was like data gathering at the end because
oh,
he was
for
like
sure.
two
Yeah.
three laps down. I think, did he end up, I think he ended up retiring anyway.
Yeah, he did like at the very
Yeah.
end, but I was just like, okay, well, they lost practice time, so I'm sure it's just, yeah, data. And I mean, they
Yeah.
weren't fighting for points by any means, um, but yeah, it was like really once after that Max Charles thing, it was just kind of like, okay, here's
Yeah.
the F1. It was like a very extended drivers parade. So,
Basically, yeah.
yeah. So Max won that, and then Oscar P2, Lando P3. Um, and then we move into quali. I felt like before Q1 even started, there was a lot of like pit lane situations
Yeah,
going
like
on.
Nico and Lance, and there's
Yeah. And then
Lance's barge board came off or
I
something.
think Gabby and Fernando too. So I don't know
Oh
if it
yeah.
was like the Sauber team people who were getting them in the pit lane were just like
Maybe.
not well informed of what was
Yeah.
going on. Um, but the only big note I have was that Lewis got his lap time deleted, which was a
Mm-hmm.
bummer. I mean, he ended up being able to recover fairly decently. Um, but Q1 ended with Gabby, Sweet Franco again, Kimmy,
Not
Fernando,
good.
and Lance. I mean, look, Zoe and I say that, well, we all say this all the time. Like, we all have the memory of a goldfish in this sport sometimes, except for you, because you're our history
Sometimes.
dictionary. Um, but I'm like really surprised. I don't know if it's Kimmy, if he's like getting in his head, if there's stuff going on with the car. I mean, I know George wasn't like at his top performance this
So
weekend either, but
I think Kimmy is having a tough time because the car, he's not able to drive the way he wants to drive. And so he
mhm.
doesn't have that trust in the car, which just makes him slower. But George has said, like, especially after the race today, people were asking George about Kimmy. And because I think there was an interview where he was like either close to tears or it looked like he had been teary eyed or whatever. And George was asked about Kimmy's performance. And he was saying, like, Kimmy is the same driver he was, that he was when he got his podium, that he was in Japan. It's that the car has gone backwards. And
Mhm.
he said something about like convening a big meeting at Mercedes about their upgrades and how they've gone backwards. Like, when did he win in Canada or something? Like,
Yeah, I
he
think
feels like they've gone backwards since then.
yeah, which we always laugh too. It's like sometimes they come with upgrades that are actually downgrades, and it's
Yeah,
just like, okay, guys, Uno reverse, this isn't working. Like,
get it together.
yeah, let's fix that. And actually, while we're at that topic, I'm just curious your thoughts on going to Mercedes, all of that. What are you?
I don't think it's happening. Mostly because I can't imagine Max at Mercedes, but then
Yeah,
again, I couldn't imagine Lewis at Ferrari in the
for
beginning.
sure.
So what do I know? But I do think I don't know if you were watching the pre-race coverage today, but Nico Rosberg. For anyone listening, I love Nico Rosberg.
Love
So
him.
yeah. Anyway, he was on the grid and he was asking Jos Verstappen about how last year Jos said that Christian needs to go because he's going to run this team into the ground. And
Hmm.
Jos was basically like I'm not saying anything, whatever. But I love that Nico had the guts to ask that question because a lot of people wouldn't, especially to Jos Verstappen.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of theories going around about how, like Jos and the Verstappen camp were like, either Horner goes or we go. And I
Yeah,
could see that ultimatum being enough for the Red Bull, overlords to be like, okay, it's time for Christian to go.
for sure. Yeah, I'm just so curious to see because part of me is just like, there's no way. Especially because I know if he's just done with his time at Red Bull, like if he just doesn't think that they can get out of it anytime soon or whatever, that's one thing, but I don't know. I just like it's not like Mercedes is killing it at the moment. I mean, they've been better, but it's just crazy.
I think it would have to be a situation like how, when Lewis went to Mercedes from McLaren, Nicky Lauda basically told him about their project and like what was coming in 2014 and convinced him that, okay, come for 2013. And then when the regulations change, we're going to be the quickest by a mile and a half. So
Hmm.
you'll be good. And it would have to be that kind of situation where
Yeah.
Toto, like all the rumors about the Mercedes power unit being the best for the new regulations, if they can convince Max and his team of that, then maybe he would be convinced. But then again, Mercedes is being beat by their customer teams like McLaren. So who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just fascinating. It will be, but I agree with you because I also was like I couldn't picture Lewis anywhere else, and obviously it was very easy now to see him there, but Max at Mercedes, I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around, but I do have a Mercedes hat now, so that's good. I'm like, I have so much Red Bull merch. Um, okay, and then Q2, God, I was really bad at taking notes this weekend. But again, there wasn't, I feel like a ton that was going on, but I think Ollie had kind of oversteered. There was some other, um, kind of, I don't know, weird stuff going. Were there more track limit
So
issues?
it wasn't track limits for Ollie. It was Yuki not impeding him, but it kind of compromised his run into his fast
Oh,
lap
that's
when
right.
Yuki
Yeah.
like overtook him basically.
Yeah.
And then I think Ollie lost like three, maybe four, but probably 3/10 in that
Hmm.
little endeavor. And it's really funny afterwards when Yuki's waiting to go out for Q3, Ollie's like walking past the Red Bull garage and like looks at him and they just look at each other. It's quite funny. But
That
yeah,
is
he got
funny.
pretty unlucky and his uncensored radio is pretty expletive filled. He was
Mm,
very upset because he was like, "This shouldn't have been a question. We should have been into Q3." So
yeah. Oh, that's too bad. And there was no like investigation or anything about that?
because it wasn't impeding, it was just like it really wasn't impeding. It was
Oh,
just
it
that
was just like rude.
he yeah, it was kind of like on the broadcast they talked about how they have like a gentleman's agreement not to
Yeah.
do that, but
Yeah.
it's not like a rule.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Uh, Thank God you're here. You're really helping me out. This is usually Zoe's bread and butter, so I'm very glad you got all the facts. So then Q2 ends. We have both Haas's out, Pierre's out, Hulk and Sainz. So once again, we have
Carlos.
Gabby out qualifying his teammate, which is just so exciting.
It's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, very happy for him. And then also happy to see Liam into Q3.
Q3.
Feel like he needed that. And then I was so
Yeah, for
excited.
sure.
Yuki P5 going in to Q3. So exciting because that's where, I mean, that's where you'd hope he'd be is just one person away from Max. Like
Hmm.
that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Zoe was thrilled, obviously. So very excited to see that. And then Q3, Gabby got his lap time deleted. So he qualified P10, but
Hmm.
um I kind of thought Max would pull it out, but he did not. He left it to
I
the
did too for a while
McLarens.
because yeah, I wasn't surprised though. It seemed like Lando and Oscar were so close. Like I think was it sprint quality where Oscar was ahead by 4 tenths or something crazy from Max, and then like
Yeah,
6 tenths from Lando. But then yesterday it was way more even, which made
yeah,
more sense to me
yeah.
for
So,
sure.
so yeah, overall, good session. Again, I was not surprised to necessarily see that McLaren is once again at the
Yeah.
top. I will say, I think dominant eras are always just rough because it's like you either if you love them, it's great. Like even when Max was just like winning everything all the time, it's like it's fun, but it's also kind of boring because I want to see
Yeah.
Max like actually race. I will say the one thing that I am like okay with this whole McLaren dominance is it is both of them. Like I haven't
Both of them.
been in an era where that's happening. It's just been Max and then his
Hmm.
teammate is somewhere. Um, Depending on the season, they're either on the podium together or they're at the back of the pack because
Do
the
you
cars are
consider
being run.
last year sorry, do you
No,
consider
you're fine.
last year as part of Max's like dominant era, or like did you like how last year anybody could win a race, like
Yeah.
especially that summer season, or like because I feel like last year, even though I basically knew that Max was going to win, we knew Max was going to win the championship, it would have taken like a Herculean effort for Lando to come back,
Mhm.
but I still found that more interesting in
Oh
that middle
yeah.
section where it was like George, Carlos, like anybody, Lewis, you don't know who is going to win.
Yeah, no, that I love that. I thought that was way more exciting.
Yeah.
And I like again, it's for me. I love Max. Obviously, it's great when he wins, but when he's the like leader of the parade and he's 30 seconds ahead of everyone, like that's just not exciting to watch. It's like watching him in qualifying or like if he, took a penalty to change his gearbox or something and he's starting in the back and then wins from that. Like that's fun because you're
Mm-hmm.
watching him actually do his
Yeah.
thing. Watching him drive isn't that exciting.
You want to
Y-
see him do like Brazil things. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
So, um, okay, so race day, only a bit of so we had Lewis, Fernando, Carlos, and Kimi all started from the pit lane. I think Carlos had a setup change, and then the rest of them changed their power unit, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and then we had a rain delay for an enormous amount
An
of
a-
time, like
Was it
an
like an
hour.
hour and 20 minutes?
Yeah,
Something
something like
like
that.
that?
It was just a lot. And I saw some kind of back and forth. Obviously, some of the drivers were talking about it. I I couldn't tell if obviously it seemed like when they were doing like the formation lap behind the safety car, like the visibility was really bad, and I think they probably made the right
Hmm.
call. But it seemed like there was people who thought against it, and I'm just curious on your thoughts. I do wonder if the track itself lent itself to being more cautious because of how many like fatalities
Yeah.
there have been there, and but I'm just curious to know what your thoughts were.
So one thing I would say, I think Max was the main one who was like, we could have started miles earlier. Like, what are we doing here? And I think a lot of drivers were also annoyed because they had changed their setups for like a wet race. And
Hmm.
essentially, if they felt like race control was waiting for a dry race so that in race control's defense it was like for a safer race because
Sure.
after Silverstone a lot of the drivers had talked to the race director saying that they had basically like gone too early or that we should be more cautious than they were in Silverstone because of all the incidents. And I think this time maybe they played it too safe a little bit. Maybe they could have done like I don't know one less formation lap or whatever
Yeah.
it was they did. But I think most of the drivers, like I took note of it. I think it was George, Carlos, Charles, Oscar, and probably other ones too, were on race control side saying that, like, you know what, in Silverstone, the race director said he'd play it safe, and that's what he did. And
Yeah.
Charles was basically like, I would way rather, especially to track like this where historically we've had incidents, I would way rather, be too safe than be
Yeah.
too early and go out and have a problem. And I think I get Max's frustration. And also Max is someone who does so well in the wet where
Yeah.
he's like itching to race in the wet. And I think he probably thought that if they got to race while it was still wet, he would have had a shot even to like go for forget podium. Like I think he thought he could have gone for the win,
Yeah.
you know.
For sure. Yeah, and I just love, I mean, I'm again, obviously want everyone to stay safe, but like I love a wet race at Spa. So I was just very
Me
excited
too.
for that and obviously no dice on that one. Um
I feel like if Pirelli made wet weather tires that the teams would actually use, like
mhm.
that's also the danger because they know that all the teams are going to go inter unless it's mandated they have to go wet.
Yeah.
So if Pirelli could just, provide some wet tires where they'll actually race and use them,
Yeah.
maybe we would, but
Yeah.
alas.
It would be fun. Um so one thing that we actually got questions about, and I know your love of Nico Rosberg, but during the red flag, or yeah, during the red flag, one of the conversations that kind of started up what like poor Martin and Crofty, they're just looking for anything to fill time, but kind of just started like really talking to Nico about his friendship with Lewis, and Nico was
Yeah,
just like not, he's so not the guy who shuts down a conversation, or at least he doesn't seem like that, but he was just kind of like, yeah, that's okay on that, and then they just kept going and going and going, and I
he
just would
tried
love your,
so
I
hard.
know.
Like, to be fair, he did drop some already known lore. Like, he was talking about how they used to wrestle in hotel rooms, which is like, isn't new information or anything.
Hmm.
But they were really pressing. I think it's because they didn't know how else to fill time.
Sure.
And
And
Nico is
Nico
like,
is a chaotic enough person to maybe
exactly.
run with
And
it.
he is a
Yeah.
yapper. He will run his mouth. Sometimes he'll like his brain goes faster than his mouth and he just says things. But recently he's been trying to cool it, I feel like. But
Yeah.
when they asked him, do you miss Lewis?
Yes. And he
Dying
basically was
because
just
he
like, let's
said,
move on.
yeah, he said we have a very nice neutral relationship, which is not how it characterize whatever they have going on.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was
No,
crazy.
it's so funny. And I didn't realize that they're neighbors, like they live in the same building or something, which
So they lived in the same building since Lewis moved to Monaco in like
yeah.
2013. Like there's all this lore about how like Lewis used to store his watches in Nico's
Yeah.
apartment, and when he didn't feel like cooking, he would go up. Like there's like a lot of like funny stories about that. But it's funny because like Nico grew up in that apartment building. Like his parents used to have an apartment there,
Oh,
and then he
uh-huh.
got his own, and then Lewis moved in. So it's just like full of
Wow,
fun
so many stories
encounters.
those walls could tell. But I was also cracking up when Martin was like, "Yeah, when I was driving a McLaren and you and Lewis came and just destroyed like the garage," and so he was like, "You two were so annoying."
Yeah,
I just
which
love
fair
that.
enough.
Yeah, totally. But I just think it's funny that like he has, I don't know, I kind of forget sometimes like how long these people are actually in the sport and like how early they
Yeah.
come in, and like for Martin to know them as children is really funny.
Also, like just how long they've all known each other. Like even the commentators and stuff who've
Yeah.
been around for a long time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it goes way back. But okay, back to the race. I was disappointed. I mean, again,
Right.
I understand for safety, but I was disappointed that it was a rolling start, but it's
Mm-hmm.
fine. We move on. Um, Oscar overtakes Lando pretty quickly. And it seemed like Lando was having issues with his like battery recharging. Um, but I think it was, I don't know, you might know more than I do, but it seemed like it was very chaotic. Watching races with people is really hard.
Stressful.
It's really hard.
Were your friends F1 fans? Like, did they know
They
what was going on, or do
are,
you have to
but it was
explain?
like we were just kind of all yapping, and no,
Okay.
they're all very dialed in. They watch every weekend, but
Got it. Got
it's
it.
just still like I'm used to just watching like by myself in my room with my notes app open,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, guys, I can't
Yeah.
hear what they're saying. I don't know what the radio messages are. But it seemed like they kind of lost some power during the restart, or yeah, during the restart, but then he was fine.
So to be fair, like there was a lot of chatter about it, but after the race, Zach Brown said that Lando had battery issues in the beginning, but Oscar also has battery issues
Mm,
later. But they would need to look at them and see how much it affected. But Lando, in his post race interview, said that the battery issue didn't wasn't relevant to him getting overtaken, and that was just like the slipstream and like
yeah,
how it works in Spa. Because it was the same way that Max did to Oscar
yeah,
the day before. So
yeah,
Lando and obviously, unless he's trying to cover for the team, but he was basically like, yeah, it was related.
yeah. Okay. And then one thing, and I am so not smart when it comes to tires and like why people choose the tires they do at certain times, but I was kind of surprised to see that Lando took hard tires after his pit stop. Because was he the only one? It seemed like he was, there might have been one other person, but everyone else was on
Yeah,
mediums.
I mean that was him committing to the one stop, like
Yeah,
with the hards just going all the way to the end, and assuming that if you're on the medium, you would have to do a two stop. But
yeah,
in the end, because Pirelli like they skipped that one compound,
yeah,
the mediums and the hards ended up performing relatively the same because a lot of people did a one stop. I mean, Oscar did the one stop on the
yeah,
medium, so
yeah, that's fair.
yeah.
And
Lando
then,
also had a bad pit stop though.
yeah, he did. It's not great.
Kind
Um,
of sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only other thing I had, which isn't like the most interesting thing, but Gabby got a little chirpy as he should, and he and Hulk had to switch positions. Um, but
Mm.
other than that, it also just like wasn't the most thrilling. I mean, it was fine. There was some, good stuff. It's a beautiful track. Like that
Yeah, yeah,
alone
yeah.
was like really fun, but I just felt like it was a pretty standard parade a bit.
I feel like I don't know if this is recent, but I also think that at least recently in like the broadcast kind of I feel like a lot of times we're just waiting for something to happen at the front. Like we were waiting for
Yes.
Lando to like catch up to Oscar and overtake him. And there was like a lot of interesting stuff happening in the midfield and even the back
Yeah.
markers, which I understand why they don't want to show it because the battle is at the front. But at
But it
some points I
isn't
was like, okay, he's
sometimes. Like
yeah,
sometimes there's not enough actually happening at the front. It's like we can catch up
yeah,
with that later or like split the screen or something. Like because then I also
yeah.
think we never well not never, but there's often there isn't a happy medium. Like at one point we were watching the battle for 17th. I'm like, why are we here?
To be
Like
fair, that was a really fun battle between
it
Kimi and
was.
Alonso. I don't know why they were doing that. They're going so hard for no reason,
I know.
basically. But it was quite like I feel like we even missed a lot of like Lewis's early overtakes because
Hmm.
he on one lap he got like Carlos, Hulkenberg, and I think Colapinto in the beginning, like in one lap. It was really cool. So I feel
Yeah.
like we sometimes miss stuff like that too in like the beginning of the race, or I don't know. Like I get that we want to watch Lando and Oscar fight if it's like a Canada situation where
Sure.
they're actually battling. But after the pit stop, Lando was what 8 seconds behind, and he was catching up. He was going really fast. He was pushing, and by doing that, they caught some of his like slips where he like went off, I think
Hmm.
once or twice. But I don't know. I was like, we could be watching.
Racing.
To be fair, there was yeah,
Yeah. And I think
yeah.
I think it like to me, to your point, like yes, you were like, why are we watching this P17 battle? But it's because they're fighting as if there are points to be had there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I just think sometimes we can I'm when I'm watching, I'm really bad at tracking the leaderboard and like what else is
Mm-hmm.
going on. I kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
really can only like dial in on what's actually on the screen. So it like I would appreciate a little bit more diversity in the coverage
Yeah.
sometimes, but
Mm-hmm.
once again, I'm not
It is
sure.
what it is.
Yeah. Um, okay, shall we get into some listener questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. Um, oh, this is a good one. Can Lando ever win a championship with McLaren while Oscar is there?
Yes.
Hmm.
I
No, I agree.
feel like they've been pretty evenly
I
matched.
think so too. I don't know where I think it's actually going to land, but I do think that they'll kind of duke it out until the very end, which I think could be really fun. Do you have a prediction on who you think will take it?
No, because I feel like it's so. I think if one of them has, because they've had what 3 1-2s in a row, and so the points are really really close. Unless somebody has like a DNF and they have to work their way back, I
Yeah.
think it's gonna go down to the wire.
Yeah.
And it's just because they're very different in terms of like Oscar loves a track like Spa, and Lando when he has like the car that's comfortable with the new component or whatever, he's sometimes unstoppable. So it's kind of just like whoever's best at that track on that day.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see how that all, lends itself. I mean, I know people have asked but in previous episodes, like, do we think this will be another Brosades? And like, I
No.
don't because they don't have the same relationship, but it is interesting
Yeah.
to see like that time. I feel like I haven't really seen this dynamic since I've been a fan, so it's definitely
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
interesting to watch, but I just feel like they're such different personalities that I don't know. Um,
I don't think it'll get that deep. Like
I
I
don't
think
either.
that not to like get into Mercedes right now, but I think the thing is that they both cared so much and they're like childhood best friends and like they both very much cared about each other. And not to say that Oscar and Lando don't, but they don't have that like childhood, I've known you since I was like
Right.
8 years old, like
Yeah.
relationship. And I think that makes it easier to separate on track and off track.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, I was actually thinking this today too. Why has McLaren lost their good pit stops this year?
Hmm.
Which is true. I feel like McLaren was always like their pit stops were crazy good, and maybe they
Yeah.
have some new team members there, but I do feel like the last few races, some of the pit stops at McLaren have been a little slower than like their normal.
They used to be like oftentimes they would be like one of the fastest pit
Hmm.
stops of the race or whatever. Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like I either it's new, they're trying out something new in like systems and how they do things, or they have new people. And the third option is like they're just under a lot of pressure now because
Yeah.
they're at the top and like that's the only thing that can you can screw up at.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No, that's
That's
a
a really
good.
good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. So I missed the grid walk, but there's a couple people
Mhm.
who have said, please tell me you watch. Oh, this one question is, please tell me you watch the chaotic grid walk and rank the craziest moments. So Nico was hosting the grid walk today?
Nico and Martin were together
Oh,
hosting the
wow.
grid
I'm gonna
walk,
have to go back and rewatch this.
which is very fun. There's one point where Nico and Martin are talking to Jensen Button, which is pretty fun. Then there was, I would say the Jos Verstappen one. I was pretty like in shock about Nico asking that question.
Yeah.
That was my
S-
craziest one. Who
So
else did they
good.
talk to?
Yeah.
Oh, the other one was like Lewis turning his Lewis turning the his umbrella that he was holding like away so that he wouldn't have to like interact.
So good.
Classic.
We love an umbrella. Okay. Why will Brian not leave Charles alone?
Listen, we are doing so much better than we had
It's so
Javi. So
true.
I'm okay with Brian Botsy
Yeah.
troubling Charles a little bit,
I
okay?
know. It's so funny. He's just like, stop talking to me. He gets so worked up.
It's I honestly I love it because sometimes Charles is just so like nice in the media about Ferrari and like covering for them. I like when
Yeah,
he like snaps back a little bit.
I know. It's fun. Okay, last question, because a lot of these we did talk about sort of throughout
Okay.
the episode, but are we disappointed that Franco isn't making more of a splash? I hoped for a bit more from him.
I think it was kind of expected. That car is already not easy to drive, and I think
Yeah.
Pierre is doing a really good job with it. But I don't know how much he can do. Like, it's like
Yeah.
what we're seeing with Kimmy and George. Like George is doing well because he's been around for a long time, but it's difficult for Kimmy. And I think we're seeing a similar thing with Franco, especially the discrepancy between teammates.
Hmm.
So I don't really know if it's fair to expect him to like be in the points or closer. I think the reasonable expectation is like very few unforced errors and having clean
Yeah.
races and not costing damage and maybe helping Pierre when it's possible.
Hmm.
But I don't really know if it's fair to expect him to like be in the points with that Alpine.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Do you think he's going? Because I was so curious when they announced that he was going to be taking Jack's seat
Mm-hmm.
for 5 races or whatever it was, and it was just like only 5 races, five at a minimum. I don't know if the announcement itself felt kind of
It
weird,
was
but
weird.
the way it looks is he's going to be there for the rest of the season. But I just didn't know. Is that what you think too?
It looks like it because so I don't remember what show it was on, but somebody asked Flavio Briatore about the 5 race thing for Franco, and he was basically like, "I never said that." Like, it's essentially what he said
Oh,
about. So I think there's like a miscommunication, or like I don't really know what it was, but Flavio was pretty much like, "Yeah, it's not for just 5 races."
okay, got it. All right, well, that's that on that, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you again for joining. It was so nice talking to you. I feel like this is probably the most amount of time we've gotten to spend together because usually on
Yeah.
like these trips, I feel like we see each other in like little
20
drips and
minute
drops. Yeah,
bursts. Yeah.
but yeah, if you want to tell people where they can find you if they're not following you already.
Yes. So you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everything. And the username is formula_dev, DEV. Yeah.
Perfect. And yeah, she's got all the things. She's a brilliant gal. She knows it all.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
then we do end every episode by saying Enchanté, our little homage to Daniel
Okay.
Ricciardo. So if you would like to end saying it however you please.
Enchanté.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Amazing. Okay. This was so fun.